8 steel towers still stand across Appalachia's ridgelines, rusted, silent, locked away from hikers who wander too close. Rangers once lived inside narrow cabins, watching for smoke before radios or planes existed. Then, without warning, most were shuttered within a single decade. Official reports blame budget cuts and new technology. Local accounts describe something else entirely: sudden departures, missing logbooks, warnings passed quietly among crews. Tonight, we're climbing every staircase, chasing each contradiction. Before we start, tell us where you're tuning in from tonight. Deep in these mountains, or somewhere far away? Curious why places like this got abandoned completely? High on Pine Mountain, in Harlan County, Kentucky, a rusted skeleton rises above the tree-line. Locals call it the Putney Tower, though the record's listed as Beshman. Built in the 1930s by the Civilian Conservation Corps, it once guarded thousands of acres of timber from wildfire. Rangers climbed its stairs every morning at dawn, scanning the ridges for smoke. For decades, it worked exactly as designed. Then, sometime in the 1970s, everything stopped. State paperwork says budget cuts closed it down. Planes and radios had made the old system obsolete, and Kentucky's Division of Forestry simply moved on. That's the documented version. Older residents tell a different one, about a ranger who refused to finish his final season, and a replacement who lasted only a few weeks before requesting reassignment. Nobody wrote down why. The tower was left standing, its logbook never fully accounted for. Picture yourself climbing those same stairs today. Rust flakes beneath your boots. Thick forest has swallowed the old access road. Somewhere below, a ranger's cabin is slowly collapsing into the hillside. Proof that people once lived up here, alone, for weeks at a time. 300 miles south, inside the Great Smoky Mountains, a second tower tells a similar story. Shuckstack Fire Tower was decommissioned in the late 1960s, one of 17 lookouts once used across the park and its cooperating lands. The National Park Service maintained it faithfully for 30 years. Almost overnight, staffing simply ended. Nothing ties the timing to a single incident. No public report links Shuckstack's closure to anything unusual, just budget lines, quietly redirected, and a tower left to the elements. Here's what doesn't add up. 2 towers, hundreds of miles apart, both shut down within years of each other, both missing key pieces of their final paperwork. Coincidence, or something Appalachia's forestry departments never wanted on record? If you're starting to notice a pattern, you're not the only one. The next 2 towers make it even harder to ignore. Number 3. Why Bald sits inside the Nantahala National Forest, and its tower tells a stranger story than most. Built with 3 full stories, it once held living quarters, a wood stove, and 16 windows overlooking the surrounding wilderness. In 1945, the Forest Service decommissioned it. That part is documented. What happened next barely made it onto paper at all. Instead of simply locking the doors, crews physically removed the entire top floor. The lookout room, the windows, the living quarters, gone, dismantled, hauled away. Most towers were just left to rot. Bald was stripped down deliberately, and no record explains why that particular tower needed such drastic treatment so soon after the war ended. 2 stories remain today, cut short like a building missing its final thought. Empty air sits where a room used to be. Whatever the Forest Service wanted gone, they wanted it gone completely. Not far away, Mount Camerer's tower took a different path entirely. Built with a stone and wood design unlike any other lookout in the Smokies, it functioned for decades before quietly disappearing from active use. Unlike Bald, no records showed deliberate removal. It simply stopped being staffed, and the mountain reclaimed it, piece by piece. 2 towers. 2 different endings. one dismantled by human hands, one left to nature's. Neither the timing nor the silence afterward adds up cleanly. If you've made it this far, you're exactly the kind of viewer this channel was built for. People who notice when the record doesn't line up. Drop a comment with the name of the strangest abandoned place near you. We read every single one. So far, we've only covered towers with paperwork trails, however thin. The next two barely have that. And one comes with an eyewitness account the Forest Service has never publicly addressed. Number 4. West Urbald stands right along the Appalachian Trail, and its tower has survived more damage than almost any other in the southern Appalachians. Built in 1936 by the Civilian Conservation Corps, it functioned for decades before aerial detection made it obsolete in the 1960s. The Forest Service walked away. The tower sat empty, exposed, waiting. Then in 1979, vandals burned the cabin at its base to the ground. That fire is documented. What isn't documented, at least not officially, is why a structure sitting miles from any road, deep in dense forest, would draw vandals in the first place. Fire towers aren't easy targets. Reaching one takes effort, planning, and a reason to climb that high just to destroy something. No arrest was ever made. No motive ever surfaced. Charred wood once scattered across that summit. The image survives only in old ranger notes. The steel frame stayed standing, blackened but intact, as if it refused to go down with the cabin. Whoever did this wanted the tower emptied completely, not just abandoned. Head north into the Cumberland Mountains, and you'll find a smaller, lesser-known tower with an even stranger footnote. Local accounts, passed down through generations of forestry workers, describe a lookout who radioed in a routine report one evening and went silent for the rest of his shift. By morning, he had reappeared, unharmed, offering nothing to account for the gap. It never made it into any state report. It survives only through word of mouth among rangers who worked that district for decades. There was no fire, no injury, and no missing person on paper, just an unexplained gap inside a system built entirely around constant observation. This is the part of Appalachian history that rarely gets written down properly, not because nothing happened, but because nothing happened that anyone could officially classify. A burned cabin with no suspect. A missing hour with no report. Two mysteries, decades apart, both left permanently unresolved. The strangest part is still ahead. The final two towers connect these stories in a way nobody expected. Rich Mountain Tower, outside Hot Springs, North Carolina, was raised by the Forest Service in 1932. Its cab built wide enough for a ranger to live inside for weeks at a time. Unlike most towers on this list, it stayed staffed well into the 1990s, decades after its neighbors went dark. That alone makes it unusual. Aerial detection had already replaced most lookouts by the 1970s, yet Rich Mountain kept its ranger long after the technology made him unnecessary. Nobody has ever accounted for why. Some records suggest local officials simply valued having eyes on that ridge. Others point to something less formal, a persistent belief among nearby residents that the mountain needed watching for reasons beyond wildfire. By the time the tower finally fell into disrepair, vandalism and weather had done more damage than fire ever did. A 2018 restoration brought it back from near collapse. But no restoration project can justify 3 extra decades of unexplained caution. Travel back into Kentucky now, to Tater Knob, a tower built in 1934, deep in the Daniel Boone National Forest. Its cab once held a stove, a table, 2 cots, and barely enough room to turn around. In 1959, the entire structure was reconstructed and reduced to half its original size. On paper, lookouts no longer needed to live inside it full-time. Off the record, longtime forestry workers describe a different reason. A ranger who requested the change himself and never said why he refused to sleep there anymore. Barely enough space to stand upright, even now. A structure quietly rebuilt smaller, as if something about the original size had become a problem nobody wanted to name. 5 states, 8 towers, missing logbooks, dismantled floors, an unexplained hour of silence, and a room deliberately built smaller. Everyone carries a documented version on paper, and a completely different account passed down by the people who actually worked these mountains. None of these stories connect on paper, but stand back far enough, and a pattern starts to form. One Appalachia's forestry departments have never had to answer for, because nobody in power has ever officially asked the question. 8 towers, 5 states, one unanswered question. Why does the paperwork never match what the people who worked these mountains actually witnessed? Somewhere in Appalachia, another tower is sitting forgotten right now, holding its own version of this same silence. Subscribe, and we'll keep climbing until one of these mysteries finally gets answered.